Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast, our weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week, and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner via Zoom, Dan Youngblood. And Dan, we've got a very special guest tonight. Abilene head football coach Mike Fullen is going to join the show.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. Coach Fullen's a guy that I've gotten to know the last couple of years, particularly since he's taken that head coaching job. I've really enjoyed kind of getting to know him and watching his process as a head coach. He was just a really good defensive coordinator for a long time for the Eagles before taking over that head coaching job. And then in year two, he's diagnosed with cancer and has to deal with with COVID and just a lot of adversity this year. And I've been very, very impressed with the way both he, his staff, and really his entire program has handled that. And I'm eager to talk to him about some of those things. This has been a very unique season for him, as it has been for everyone, and he's had kind of an extra layer of adversity and uniqueness with his cancer diagnosis and treatment, and he's been real open about that. So I'm kind of interested just to talk about him, about some of the challenges he's faced throughout the season, and his team, which just snapped a 3-year playoff drought, will be playing El Paso Eastwood in the bi-district round playoff game this week. So there's a lot to talk to him about, and just to really, I'm excited just to kind of pick his brain on some of those things.
All right, before we jump into this week's show, we need to thank our primary sponsor, Capital Farm Credit, with offices all over Texas, including Stanford and Abilene. Buy your own slice of Texas with Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better. And with that, Dan, it is time to jump into last week's playoff games. We'll start at the 6-man level, Class 1A Division II state semifinal. The Strawn Greyhounds fall to Perennial Power Richland Springs, a battle of perennial powers, used to playing at this level and challenging to go to the state championship. This time, the Coyotes get the better of the Greyhounds, 59-56, in a great ball game.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You and I have kind of complained over the years at how rarely these high-profile matchups turn out to be really hyper-competitive games. And that complaint was unfounded this weekend, both in this game and in the May Blum game in Class 1A Division I. But in this game in particular, you mentioned this is a thriller in every sense of the word, and unfortunately for Strawn, they came up on the short end of it. They ended the game at the 8-yard line, trying to go ahead as the clock was ticking down. And as it turned out, 8 yards was the difference between seeing their season end or making it to Arlington. So just a tough way for Coach Dwayne Lee's bunch to end the season. But I think you have to be just really impressed with the fight that they showed in this game. They had lots of opportunities, I think, to kind of fold and to kind of accept defeat, and they never did. They just kept fighting back, made plays when they needed to, got a huge game from running back Luke Eli, who had over 270 total yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. They
came down to the last second,
Yeah.
They had a 4th down and 10 on the Richland Springs 24, and Parsons was forced to dump off a pass under pressure as time expired, and they were forced out of bounds. It really just came down to the last play.
Yeah, you can't fault the effort. They gave it everything they absolutely had, and just came up 8 yards short, like I said. So we have to say goodbye to the Strawn Greyhounds, but they have
a great season.
Yeah, a ton to be proud of this year.
Yeah, another great season for Coach Dwayne Lee, and just a rock-solid program, perennial power. There's who else in 6-man can you say has done a better job than Dwayne over the last, say, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, it's a great program, and it's a team that every year, this time of year, is playing its best football. You're never surprised when they make it to a state championship game, and they dang near did it this year. It just came just a little bit short.
And with that, we'll jump over to Class 1A Division I, another 6-man state semifinal. May, in just an extraordinary game, outlast Bloom 92-86. Now, I in the past have griped that too high a percentage of our 6-man, championship games, regional championships, state championships, go to the 45-point rule. I want to see that number drop. I want to see more competitive games. But I'll tell you something. When you do get a competitive 6-man football game like this, some of them, they just end up being absolute classics, like this ball game that we had the other night with May and Bloom, 92-86. What more can you say? And that's OT.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can complain about the competitiveness of this set of 6-man games. You look at what Strawn in Division II, and both Class 1A state semifinal games went to overtime. Sterling City knocked off Borden County 48-40 in overtime as well. So just some great. These like you mentioned, when you have these types of 6-man games, between two elite teams, and they do kind of go the distance and come down to, the final plays. It is just very, very entertaining. And that's certainly the case in this May game. You look at just an offensive, just an explosion on both sides. Blum had more than 600 yards. May gained over 550. Both teams had excellent individual performances. You look at what Caden Hawk did for the second straight week: 302 yards rushing, 6 rushing touchdowns, a kickoff return touchdown on top of that. Just a fantastic football game with just a ton of huge plays, a ton of huge individual performances. I think this is kind of what you want this time of year. When you get to a state semifinal, you want to be wowed, and this game certainly accomplished that.
One thing that jumps out at the stat sheet, and they're playing my kind of football in May. They pounded it 488 yards rushing as a team on 37 carries. They had over 500 yards in total offense, only threw for 63.
Yeah, and when you have players like Caden Hawk, like Rory Bustamante, who also had over 150 yards rushing, there's not a whole lot of reason to pass. I mean, you can hand it off to those guys, and between them gain over 450 yards on the ground. I think it's the smart play to do that. But, yeah, that is definitely your type of football. They're playing smash mouth football at the 6-man level and having just a ton of success with it. So I think you got to tip your hat to what Coach Steele has done with this May program. 13-1, headed to Arlington again for a state championship game. And it's going to be fun to see if they can finish off that deal this year. I think this team they have has been really, really impressive. They've got an undefeated Sterling City team coming up. That's going to be a challenge, obviously. But at this point, I wouldn't put anything past this May squad. This is a very, very good football team.
All right, now we're going to jump up to 11-man football. We'll start off in Region 2, 3A, Division 2, where we had to say, and this is going to be on a Thursday night from last week, we had to say goodbye to the Eastland Mavericks. And Dan, both you and I pledged to keep picking the Eastland Mavericks and until someone proved that they could stop that offense. Well, Gunter pretty well stopped Eastland's offense for 3 quarters, holding them to only 7 points through 3 quarters. In the meantime, building up a 54-7 lead and winning going away 61-28, but an outstanding season for Eastland that saw them reel off 10 straight wins after an 0-3 start.
Yeah, I mean, Eastland just finally met their match. They finally found a team that could slow down that offense, could really shut them down for consecutive drives over and over and over, and unfortunately they couldn't stop the Gunter offense either. So it was just kind of a tough challenge. I was pleased to see the way that they kind of fought to the end. They continued to fight in the second half. Were able to get into the end zone a few times. Had some of those senior players that have been so important to that program. Got a chance to do some things offensively, which I thought was a good way to end if you have to lose. But this just turned out to be a little bit of a mismatch. Gunter was just too much for Eastland this year. But like you said, just a tremendous season for this Eastland pro group of seniors and for the young guys that are following them up. But I think that if you look at what this group of seniors did over the last 3 years, that they've put this program in a very strong place. And it'll be fun to kind of see what those younger guys are able to do as far as kind of using that as a springboard. But I know that was not a fun game for those guys. No one wants to get beat like that when you get to that round of the playoffs. But they continued to fight, and I think that they were able to show the type of program that is. That's a program that's a class program with what Coach Morton's done there, and just a really strong football team too. Even though that season did not end the way they wanted it to.
One of the things we were wondering about is if there were a 3A team out there that could limit Eastland's big plays and then also shut down that running game. That they have a dangerous running game behind Vernon and Morton, and Gunter more or less did both. They gave up some yards late, which I think kind of skewed the stats a little bit. But for the most part, shutting down Eastland's big plays and limiting that ground game, and it's easier said than done, but Gunter was the first team that we saw in 10 straight games that managed to do it and actually shut down Eastland when it was at full strength.
Yeah.
Nobody had really done that, but they managed.
Yeah, and Gunter was just able to kind of keep their playmakers in front of them. They were able to get Eastland off the field, possession after possession after possession, forced a turnover or two, and then offensively, Gunter's offense just was. I mean, they put on a clinic. They scored just about every time they got the football, and were able to get that. We talked last week about the team that could maybe get that multi-score lead and kind of see if they could build on that, and that's just what Gunter did. Is they got up early. Got the momentum early and just continued to pile on as that game went on, and then went to half with a big lead and really had that game in control by the start of the second half. So You tip your hat to Gunter. That's just a really good football team. That's a defending state championship football team, and I think that they showed kind of that is still the team to beat in that classification.
All right. We had to say goodbye also to the Cisco Lobos. This was a Friday night ball game. Cisco facing Post over at Wildcat Stadium at ECU. 33-0 losers to Post. And I'll tell you right now, and I think we both concur, that's about as stout a Class 2A D1 defense as you're ever going to see. They really dominated a very good, outstanding Cisco team that had run roughshod over people for a month. And just pretty much, I mean, they did what they had to do. They won the game up front, and they tackled in space, shut down Cisco. You don't see that very often at all.
No. And I'll take it a step further. You said there's one of the better small school defenses. That is the best small school defense I've ever seen in person. That defense, the way they were able to fly around, dominate the line of scrimmage, stop Cisco from getting to the edge. I mean, it was a defensive coaching clinic. As a defensive, the execution was at such a high level. Cisco just really couldn't get anything going, and that was the case for the entire game. So I think this is a Cisco offense that during its 8-game winning streak was averaging more than 300 yards rushing per game.
Mm-hmm.
They were held to 23 rushing yards in that game. I mean, they were held to 35 total yards in that game. This is an elite Cisco offense. They were blowing people up, and Post held them to 35 total yards. I mean, that's just and then after the game, Coach Stinnett basically said that. He's like, you tip your hat to them. That is just an outstanding defense, and we just couldn't get anything going. And I think the thing that should be pointed out, though, is that for 5 possessions, the first 5 possessions of the game, and really most of the first half, Cisco's defense matched Post. Post did not have a first down until their 6th possession of the game. They were able to score there, and then really I think the game turned on that punt return touchdown that made it a 2-score game. They were up 6-0 early, get a punt return touchdown that makes it 14-0 before halftime, and that really got the wheels turning for what turned out to be a blowout win. But Cisco's defense, I think you've got to tip your hat to that group as well. That group was outstanding to start the game. That was a fired up group, and really to start that game, it was really the smash mouth old school contest that Coach Stinnett thought it would be. They just were never able to find the offense they needed to kind of stay in it in the second half.
Well, yeah, I think it needs to be pointed out that Cisco really was going neck and neck with these guys. And then one of the key plays of the ball game was when Dawson Hearn gets hurt. Then you're basically losing 2 players at that point. He's one of your top defenders, if not your top defender, one of your best athletes on the offensive side. You're losing 2 key players with just one guy going out. And you could see there was a step down in Cisco's play when Hearn went out. It was and they needed everybody out there. They needed everybody they could get out there. And you lose that guy, when you're just trying to hang with this Post team, which was monstrous, and it made a huge difference.
And you said you lose 2 players. They really lost 3 because he also punts for them. And Lane Edgar had to come in there, and he had to have the punt that they got returned for the touchdown. It was kind of a low line drive. He wasn't able to maybe direct it away from the returner the way that Hearn had, and that turned out to be a big play. And obviously that wasn't the only big play, but I think you're right that Hearn's absence that's a massive loss for Cisco.
Yes.
And it showed up for sure. That was a big play in that game.
Well, with him on the field, they were underdogs.
Yeah,
they were underdogs with him on the field. You take him out of the game like that, and you're kind of in trouble at that point. But they were hanging until that point. They had really played them pretty much dead even.
Until really that punt return touchdown, Cisco was controlling the field position game. They had some really good opportunities early in the game. They had 3 of their first 5 possessions start inside Post territory, including 1 inside the Post 15. If they score there, maybe that becomes a little bit of a different game as well, where you're able to put the pressure on them as opposed to have it on you. But ultimately, I mean, the story of this game to me, and I think to most people who watched it, was the Post defense. When you have a defense that can go and shut out and shut down that Cisco offense the way it did, you're a special football team. So like Coach Stinnett said, he said, I'm rooting for those guys to win it all. As he said, that bunch was just really impressive, and I wouldn't be surprised at this point if we do see Post win it all. That if there is a Class 2A Division I offense that can put up enough offense to beat that Post team, I'd like to see him.
we've got another team that has a shot to go to Arlington. That is the Gymnet Indians, who on Thursday night faced Pilot Point at Tarleton, and really won the ball game handily. It was they didn't rout them at 45-28, but Gymnet was clearly the better football team. This is a great ball club. There was no accident, no fluke when they knocked off number 1 Brock a week before that, and they demonstrated it with an impressive win over a talented and very quick Pilot Point team.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, nothing Gymnet's done is a fluke. You're talking about a team that has beaten a fellow state semifinalist in Hallettsville in October. They beat the top-ranked team in the state, Brock, a couple weeks ago. They beat a really good Pilot Point team last week. They have wins over 2 region finalists in Cisco and Eastland. They have played an exceptionally tough schedule and held up really, really well. So I think at this point, the only conclusion anyone can draw is that Gymnet is a really, really good football team, and that they deserve to be in this position they're in. And at this point, they're a threat to anybody they'll play in that bracket. So, and I think the Pilot Point game to me was just another indication of that. When you're talking about a team that's able to hold Pilot Point to 7 points in the first half, build a 24-7 lead, and basically the game's over from that point. It never gets closer to 3 scores after that. But this is a Gymnet team with a massive and physical offensive line, with one of the best running backs in our area that you're going to see in Xavier Wishart, and then just an elite defense, a team that is shut down Brock, a team that has shut down Hallettsville, a team that has shut down Cisco, a team that handled Eastland. I mean, this is just a fantastic football team.
And I'll tell you what, Dan, they might have the best special teams in the big country. They can hurt you on kickoff returns. And there's just 2 straight weeks now that they've taken a kickoff back, a free kick back, one off of a safety. They're scoring double digits 2 weeks in a row in these huge ball games with their special teams. That's huge in these tight ball games. That's huge. Special teams won the ball game for them against Brock. Special teams was absolutely crucial. And they did it again against Pilot Point, scoring 10 points off of special teams in that one.
I mean, this is one of those teams, we talk about this a lot this time of year, just kind of when you get to this point in the playoffs. This is one of those teams that just doesn't have very many weaknesses. I mean, you talk about special teams. They averaged over 42 yards per punt last week. They've got a strong place kicker. They've got they do all of the little things really, really well, and then they just don't make those mistakes. You're talking about a quarterback in Tate Yardley, a guy who just runs that offense really well, really efficiently, and then you've got the playmaker in Xavier Wishart. And again, there's just not many. They're not going to beat themselves. You have to beat them, and if they're going to lose a game, it's going to have to be to a team that has the talent to get on the field and beat them, because they're not going to beat themselves. What
a weapon Wishart has turned out to be. I mean, he's fast. He's tough to bring down. He's got quick moves. So, I mean, he can juke you. He can run by you. He can run over you, and he can catch passes as well when they decide to throw to him. Yeah, no, he's been a massive weapon. And he's running behind a huge offensive line. Yeah, and that's another thing. And I think you got to give Coach Fanning a lot of credit for that. He's their offensive line coach as well. But they've just got a huge, massive physical offensive line that loves playing that smash mouth football, that's capable of putting together 10, 12, 14-play drives. So if you're going to beat them, you've got to find a way to get them off the field, which is a challenge. And then you've got to find a way to extend drives yourself on offense, which is another challenge because their defense is so good. So we'll see if Mount Vernon can do that, coached by Art Briles. You know their offense is going to be explosive. But at this stage, I like what this Gymnet team's doing. If you're going to beat them, you're going to have to show up on that day and beat them, because they're not going to make the mistakes that allow you to beat them by that way. I mean, you're going to have to line up. You're going to have to beat them physically, and you're going to have to leave the field having outplayed them. And with that, it's just about time to take a look at what we've got coming up this week. We, of course, have all 3 of our locals, Dan, or the 5A, 6A playoffs are beginning. We got Wiley, we got Cooper, and we've got Abilene starting this week. And we've got May, who will play Wednesday of next week, but we're going to talk about that tonight. And then we also have, of course, Gymnet, who are advancing to face Mount Vernon in the state semifinals. But before we do that, we want to thank our sponsors, primarily Capital Farm Credit, who brings you these Wednesday night podcasts free of charge throughout the school year. Also, for the love of the game broadcasting, and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, KWKQ FM 94.7 out of Graham, K-Lakes 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, 97.7 FM KHEX out of Eastland, KROO 1430 AM out of Breck, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is the love of the game broadcasting. Also, Phil Hill of the Abilene Realtors Group, big supporter of local athletics. If you're in the market, give Phil a call at 325-669-5153 or visit his website at philhillproperties.com. And finally, Underwood's Cafeteria in Brownwood. As you're going through Brownwood, look around for the big cowboy sign, and you'll find it. Some of the best home cooking in the big country. That is Underwood's Cafeteria, a landmark in the big country since 1946. And with that, Dan, we've got what we've got coming up ahead in the playoffs. We've got all three locals diving in the first round. We've got Wiley facing Grapevine. That is set for 7 p.m. Friday at Grapevine, Colleyville ISD's Mustang Panthers Stadium. That is too many words for one stadium, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Cooper at 7:01 facing Mansfield Summit. That is slated for 7 p.m. Friday. That's here at Shotwell Stadium in Abilene. And finally, we got the Abilene Eagles at 4-4 facing El Paso Eastwood. That is slated for 3 p.m. Saturday in Fort Stockton, and that is a haul. You'll get bus lag going out to Fort Stockton.
But it's not as big a haul as it would have been had they had to go all the way out to El Paso, which would have been the deal had El Paso not elected, Eastwood not elected to play in front of fans at Fort Stockton. So that actually was a break for Abilene High. They don't have to go all the way to El Paso for that one. But it's still going to be a tough game. I think we'll talk to Coach Fullen about that matchup. That's a team that likes to throw the football. It's a team that has yet to lose this year. And obviously El Paso, their season has been a little wacky. They started later than everybody else, even by 5A and 6A standards because of COVID issues in their city. And then they've had a lot more COVID cancellations and postponements than most other parts of the state have had to deal with. It has been a real challenge for those El Paso schools, but Eastwood handled it well. They were able to close out their regular season undefeated. They won an overtime game to close out the regular season. So this is a team that's been tested. But at the same time, I think that this is a matchup that if you're Abilene High, this isn't one of those matchups you look at and feel like it's one you can't win. I think that, well, yes, Eastwood deserves a lot of credit for putting together an undefeated regular season. This is a team that has some weaknesses. They don't run the ball very well. They run for less than 100 yards per game. So that's going to be a chance for Abilene High to kind of, face a one-dimensional team. Granted, Abilene High's weakness to this year on defense has been in stopping explosive spread passing offenses. But at the same time, they've gotten better at that over the course of the season as well. So I think this will be a good competitive matchup. Abilene High comes into this one with a lot of confidence, having won their last 3 games of the regular season. They're playing their best football of the year. They've really hit their stride offensively. Fonzo Dotson's rushed for over 100 yards each of the last 3 weeks. Quarterback Abel Ramirez is putting together a really nice first year as a starter, about a 15-3 touchdown to interception ratio. So they figured out some things offensively. Defensively, they've played pretty well all year, particularly against the run. So I think Abilene High is going to come into this game very confident, and then it's just going to be a matter of who executes better. But this is one that I think, as the lower seed, Abilene High has to feel relatively confident about the chances they have to win this.
Cooper, with Mansfield Summit at home in Shotwell Stadium, the Cougars have to like that.
Yeah, no question. You're talking about a district champion against a fourth-place team that had to win late to get into the playoffs. They beat North Richland Hills Birdville for that 4th spot. And this year's Cooper team is playing with a ton of confidence as well. This is a team that, after losing their opener to Odessa Permian, rattled off 7 straight wins and just put up some monstrous offensive numbers in doing so. You're talking about a team that still has some of the best skill talent you're going to face at that class, at that level. When you talk about Aiden Thompson at quarterback, you're talking about Noah Garcia at running back. Brian Spotwood has become that big play receiver for them. This is a team that offensively is putting up just big numbers week in and week out. And Summit, I don't think, is going to be able to really slow that down. So I think Cooper has to feel good about their first round matchup. Things will get considerably tougher after that. But this is a Cooper team, I think, that is well equipped to compete with most of the teams in this region. I think it's going to be fun to see if just kind of what they can do, because this is a team that has made a lot of progress, particularly on offense and particularly up front where they had a lot of new faces. They played pretty good defense. So this is going to be another fun playoff run for Coach Roan's squad.
All right, now we have Wiley in their first Class 5A playoff game. They are facing Grapevine, and no, I will not say the name of that stadium.
No, I don't blame you.
See that one shaking up.
No, I don't blame you. And it's hard to tell. Here's one thing about Wiley is Wiley's defense has been really good all year long. Everyone they've played, they have held under their season average. This has been a very good defense. Offensively, they've been a little bit spotty, particularly when they've gone on the road. At home, they've played pretty well offensively. The problem there is they only got 2 home games. So when they've gone on the road, they've been a little bit more inconsistent. They've had trouble getting the running game going, and then kind of everything they do is kind of is predicated on getting that run game going. And then you can get the run pass option going in the passing game, and then you get rolling a little bit, which is what they were able to do in their regular season finale against Plainview. If they can do that against Grapevine, if they can get some offense going early. And just kind of stay in that game into the second half. I like this defense. I've liked this Wiley defense all year long. This is a team that held a really good Lubbock Cooper team to 20 points, 21 points. So you're talking about a defense that has really done a remarkable job all year long. The key to me will be, can they find a way to score on Grapevine? But the one thing that I think is interesting is Grapevine did win their district, but they did win that. They got there with 3 losses over the course of the season. So this isn't a team that is unbeatable. They've already been beaten 3 times. I think their district schedule was probably a little bit weaker at the top. I think when you look at Wichita Falls Ryder and you look at Lubbock Cooper, those are 2 teams that are going to be playing for a while. And Wiley was competitive with Cooper and might have been competitive with Ryder if they'd have gotten to play them under different circumstances. That was the game they played off basically a month layoff due to COVID, and they were really looked rusty in that one. But this is a battle-tested Wiley team. It's a very good defensive Wiley team. The key is just going to be is, can they get that offense going? And Grapevine's a good football team. That's a program with a lot of tradition. They've been very competitive. They dropped down from 5A Division I. So this is going to be a tough matchup. But again, I don't think this is one that Wiley can't win. I think their defense will keep them in the game if they can find enough offense to win it. So we'll just have to see.
All right, and with that, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. We're going to jump into next week because the 6-man football teams are basically taking a bye week as they jump into their state championship games. May is our ball club that's still alive. They will play a week from tonight in Arlington. They're going to be facing Sterling City, and this is going to be a rematch of a ball game that took place on September the 4th, won by Sterling City 44-40. Sterling City comes into that ball game at 14-0. May comes in at 13-1, Dan, and really that's I'll tell you what, that's going to be another classic. It shapes up that way because May's playing really well.
On paper, this looks like a classic. This looks like this is going to be one that folks will want to see. This is going to be a great football game between 2 really, really good 6-man football teams. You talk about Sterling City, who's had a great season, has beaten some really good teams along the way. They were able to edge May, like you said, early in the season. They beat a historically good Westbrook team twice. And then obviously they had the Borden County win in overtime to get to this point. So these are 2 teams that have played tough schedules. They've been tested in the playoffs. Both had to win overtime games to get here. There's just so many great storylines to this matchup. And to me, one of the best ones is just seeing if Coach Steele can get them that state championship. This is a program that's been threatening for a while. This is a program that's been good for a long time. It's good to see them at this point. I'm really hoping we can see them get to celebrate a state championship. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility by any stretch. Like you said, the first matchup was a 4-point game. These are 2 evenly matched football teams. If May can make the plays, we'll get to crown a state champion in our area this year.
You're talking about, Sterling City playing a row of tough football teams, and they did. How often do you see a team of this caliber, 14-0, going into a state championship game at the 6-man level with 6 games on their ledger that were decided by 2 scores or less? Yeah. They don't have this nothing but 45 jobs on everybody. It didn't happen because they played a lot of very good football teams. You mentioned Sterling City twice. They've already played May. They played Borden County. Borden County is a really good football team. These all resulted in these tight games, and Sterling City won every single one of those ball games that were right on the line. Any game that in a 6-man level that's 2 scores or less is really like a toss-up, and they won every single one of those tough games. It's a tough-minded team that May's going up against.
Yeah, no question. The one good thing is I think this May team is tough-minded as well, and they showed that in that state semifinal win. So this is going to be a very hotly contested game between 2 really good football teams. I don't think there's a big talent discrepancy either way. I think it's just going to come down to whoever executes better on that day. And if you're May, I think you got to be thrilled with that opportunity. I mean, I think this is all you can ask for at this stage is to be playing with a chance to win a state championship, and they're playing against a team that they've seen before. They have some familiarity with. It's just going to be a slobber knocker. I'm excited about this one.
And with that, we're going to jump up to Class 3A D1 state semifinal action. We've got the Gymnet Indians who have earned their way there, Dan. They're facing Mount Vernon. Gymnet at 12-1 will square off with Mount Vernon 12-2. That is slated for 3:15 p.m. Friday at Arlington's Globe Life Park. And the Indians get to square off against Art Briles, a famous big country name, and a Mount Vernon team that's coming off a win over Malakoff that a lot of people didn't think they were going to get, and they did.
Yeah, you mentioned that Gymnet had earned their way here. The same is true of Mount Vernon. I think you're right that most people thought that Gymnet would be facing Malakoff in that state semifinal, but Mount Vernon found a way to make the plays to win that game, and that's something they've been doing throughout the playoffs. I think if you look at their scores, one thing that's interesting about Mount Vernon is they're another team that through the playoffs has not been blowing people out. They've been finding ways to win close games, and it's kind of crazy. They've been finding ways to win games in different ways too. They have a 12-7 win on their ledger, and then you look and they've got other games that are in the 50s and 40s. So this is a team that is, I think, again, a tough-minded football team coached by a Texas high school football coaching legend in Art Briles. You know they're going to be explosive and they're going to be creative offensively. You're going to have to find a way to stop all of the things he's going to throw at you there. The one thing I think I would say about that, though, is that this Gymnet team has faced explosive offenses all year long and has been up to the task. So I don't think any offense they're going to face on Friday will be significantly more explosive than the Eastland offense that they faced, or the Hallettsville offense that they faced, or the Brock offense that they faced. And they've managed to shut down really all three of those teams. Cisco's the same way. So I think that this Gymnet team has been battle-tested. They've been prepared for this moment. And I'm excited to see what they can do against, like you said, a coaching legend, a guy who's just had success everywhere he's been, brings just a really unique offense to the table that's ever adapting. I mean, he's a guy that can mold his offense to his talent, and you know they're going to find a way to move the football. So this should be a fun matchup. This is another one that once you get to this point, you're excited about all these games, but this is one that I've really kind of penciled in and have been excited about. I was looking forward to a matchup with Malakoff if it came to that, but this one I think is just as interesting.
Well, what a thrill for the Indians facing this Mount Vernon team with Art Briles coaching it. And what a thrill for Matt Fanning, the head football coach over at Gymnet. That's a nice feather to put in your cap, you know, saying you got to coach against Art Briles, you're going to get to game plan against him. I'm guessing the entire Gymnet staff is burning some midnight oil this week going up against this guy.
No, that's the thing is this entire season has been one feather in the cap of that staff after another. I mean, I mentioned this last week that if they can beat Pilot Point, I think you can make a legitimate claim that this is the best team Gymnet's ever had. And I think I still agree with that. I think this very well may be the best team Gymnet has ever had. And if they can beat Mount Vernon this week, they're going to be playing for a state title. And I don't think there is any team in that classification that outclasses them, that out-talents them. This is a Gymnet team that is equipped to play with anyone in that classification. And I'm just excited to see what they do this week.
Yeah, well, it's a team that does not have that D1 superstar on it. I mean, the what we may have argued as being the best Gymnet team before in 2004 had an NFL quarterback, a future NFL quarterback on the roster playing for them. This is more just a well-rounded, solid football team that's very good at almost every position out there. I think this is the best Gymnet team overall that they've ever had, from top to bottom, if you look at it that way.
And I think one thing about this Gymnet team, we've talked about this in the past as well, is I'm not sure I've seen a team in the time I've been covering high school football in the big country that is as comfortable maybe with the identity that it has. It has taken on the identity of its coach the way this Gymnet team has. This is a team that looks and plays exactly the way Coach Fanning wants it to in all phases. And I think that's important. Once you get to this point, I think culture and identity is really important because it gives you something to build around and something that you can kind of lean on when times get tough. And this team is so tough-minded, and I think that is a direct product of Coach Fanning and what he brings to this program. He brings physicality to this program. He brings tough defense. He brings tough-mindedness. He wants his teams to be tough, and this team is very much that.
And that's the value of physicality. The value of physicality is that it's difficult to game plan against. You can draw X's and O's up on the board all you want and say, yeah, we'll do this, this, and the other. But if that big offensive line is knocking you on your butt, that plan goes out the window. That's the value of physicality in football, and that is what makes this Gymnet team as good as they are.
No, definitely. I mean, this is a team that is capable of manhandling teams. I mean, obviously, you're not going to do that once you get to this stage, most likely. But this is a team that is capable of moving even elite at that level, even really good defensive lines. You mentioned they don't have that D1 superstar, that future NFL player, and that's true. But what they do have is they're blessed with excellent size up front for that, and excellent strength up front for that classification. And that's something that's just tough to match up with. That size and that physicality, when you put those things together, you're right. They just move you, and they do that play after play after play. And you look up, the next thing you know, you've just get up a 14-yard touchdown drive. So I think, to me, that's the key to this matchup. If you're Mount Vernon, can you get Gymnet off the field and not let them have those 10, 12, 14-play touchdown drives? And can you find a way to extend your own drives? Because if you can't, you're going to find yourself down like Pilot Point did, down 24-7 at half, and wondering what happened.
And with that, it's just about time to bring on Abilene head football coach Mike Fullen, a man that you know personally pretty well, Dan. And he's a guy that I have a difficult time not admiring. For the guts that he's showing, going through and what he's going through with the cancer diagnosis and all that. Maybe you can elaborate what it's meant to you personally to work with him.
And I think it's something we mentioned, those tough-minded football coaches, and Mike Fullen's always been that as a defensive coordinator. He's always been one of those guys that kind of displays that tough-minded approach. I mean, he's kind of a tough love guy. He's going to get gruff with those players, and he's going to coach them hard. But I think this year kind of showed another side of that, where it's one thing to be tough on a football field. He's had to be tough in life. I mean, like you said, he's had a really tough hand dealt to him this year with the cancer diagnosis and with the treatment. And the treatment, I think, has probably been one of the toughest parts. He after having his surgery, he had to be down for, I think, close to a month before he could do anything. And then after that, he starts chemo treatment while he's working and those sorts of things. So it's just a guy who's shown a tremendous amount of determination, and a guy who had a goal to get back to his team and to coach his team this year. And I think that there's a lot to be admired there. I mean, he's a guy that wanted to coach his football team and was coaching them within basically 3 or 4 weeks of cancer treatment. So just a remarkable story. His team's been a great story. This has been a kind of one of those inspiring stories in a very tough year for everybody. 2020 has been one of those years that I think everybody is ready for that calendar to flip over. But Mike Fullen's been one of the best stories of that year, and I'm excited to talk to him about just all of that. There's so much to talk to him about tonight.
All right, and joining us now via Zoom, Abilene High School head football coach Mike Bullen. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
Coach, we'll just start with kind of the basics. You've got your team back in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. I know that was a big goal for you guys this year. Just how excited is what's the feeling around this program, just the players and coaching staff, and kind of how excited are y'all to be back in this position?
We're super excited. As the start of the year was a little bumpy, as we thought it would be. With not having spring ball, we were fairly young in key positions. And then not knowing whether we're going to have football, and then the situation with myself kind of rocked the boat a little bit, put us in some uneasy water. But we kind of had a plan when we started as far as where we wanted to be at a certain point in time in the season, and we've kind of hit those marks. And it's a great time to be an Eagle, and it's a great time to be back in the playoffs.
Coach, tell us about El Paso Eastwood and what you're expecting from them in terms of style, et cetera.
Well, they're a spread. Chunk the ball around. Very good at it. Defensively, they're a 33 stack. Very aggressive. Like to blitz a bunch. One of the things that's going to be interesting to see in this game Saturday is they're going to be able to bring fans. They haven't had fans they haven't played in front of any fans this whole season, and that was one of the things about negotiating a neutral site, was in order for them, that way they could bring their fans. And he's got like 40 seniors that their parents have not watched them play in person all year, so it's probably going to be interesting. They'll probably bring a bunch, and they'll probably be pretty rowdy. So looking forward to it.
And Coach, you kind of touched on it. That kind of leads me to the next question, where I mean, every school in Texas that has kind of dealt with some sort of, I've kind of called it COVID weirdness. They've dealt with some adversity from that aspect. And then your team, like we've talked about, has had the extra layer of adversity with your cancer diagnosis and you going through treatment this year. I guess just just how proud have you been of the way kind of everyone's handled that this year?
Oh, I'm super proud. I mean, our players, our coaches, they kept everything together. Our team really grew up, over the period. And when I was able to join them, I mean, there wasn't any big deal about my situation, and I didn't want it to be. And they just kept hitting the marks that we wanted to hit. We knew we were going to face a gauntlet early on in district, and if we could get through that we felt good about where our team would be. And I'm really super proud of our offensive line. I really think they've come around and have set the tone in the last several ball games for us, and I'm looking forward to them doing that the same this weekend.
And I know just from texting back and forth with you kind of early in the year that as soon as you kind of got that diagnosis and kind of had that plan formulated, your goal was to get back with the team as quickly as you could. But at the same time, you've been going through treatment through that process. What has kind of been the toughest part for you, maybe personally and physically, through this season?
Well, the whole deal about the cancer, you're really not fighting cancer. You're fighting the chemo, and like this week's coming up, it will be a chemo week for me, which will be, three straight days of chemo, Tuesday through Thursday. But actually, the thing is, when I'm actually getting chemo into my body, it doesn't affect me. It's once it's in, it'll probably hit me Friday evening and into Saturday, and then the week after that's when it really takes a hold of me. And really the side effects that I have are just fatigue. I get really tired, but done a really good job and had good support of me being able to, take breaks, kind of recharge myself for our morning practice, and then recharge myself for the afternoon practice. Because when I'm on the practice field, I'm not really thinking about it, and it's when I leave and kind of get relaxed is when it, kind of crash a little bit. But I'll tell you what, the day that I, like Tuesday, when I get done, I'll get done in time to make the afternoon practice. And that steroid they shoot in me, I can set all kinds of records for about an hour and a half. And then I hit a chemo crash. But, it's draining, because your mind, sometimes you're just, when you're tired, you relax, and your mind says, hey, I'll just lay here for a little bit. I want to actually get up, but my body won't give it to me. It's a real strange feeling of, you just feel lazy, but, in my mind, I want to get up, but it's just my body won't give it to me sometimes. And that's probably been the most difficult thing, is just the reaction and the certain side effects. But I haven't gotten sick at all. I've been blessed in that regard. Of course, I kind of stay ahead of it with the medication that they give me. But the fatigue and then the numbness in my fingers and then my throat and stuff like that, but they're all common. But everybody's side effects affects them differently, and I've been pretty fortunate. It hasn't affected me as far as coaching or affected me doing my job or anything. It's just people understanding that there's things I can and can't do, and I got to watch being in close quarters with the team. We do a lot of our meeting outsides, and if I do go in the locker room, it's usually just like a little flyby, and so that's the biggest thing. I can't ride the bus with them, so I have to get our trainer. I ride with him to our games because that's just part of it. My immune system is affected, and I take a shot that keeps my white blood cell count up, and my cancer doctors have done a really good job of, because that was the biggest thing about being able to come back was keeping my immune system, particularly with the COVID, and then you got the flu season coming around, and so, but I haven't been affected by anything of that, any part of that right now.
Coach, what has it meant to you personally to see your staff step up in your absence, in particular Coach Rhodes, and run the ball club as smoothly as possible when you cannot be there?
Well, that's just a testament to the guys. You know, just like a team, as a head coach, you're only as good as as the people that work for you, and we've got a fantastic staff. And when I got diagnosed, I spent a couple of weeks getting things prepared for them, because that's the hardest part, is that starting the season. As far as a head coach, that's when you really come into play, because you got to get everything rolling, and there's always seems to be bombs going off everywhere. And so I kind of had a plan laid out before my surgery of who was going to do what, put certain people in certain situations as far as what they would handle. And man, my staff and it was just incredible. I mean, the job they did was awesome. I didn't have to worry about anything. I stayed in daily contact with Coach Rhodes and the rest of the staff and even the kids, while in my absence.
And kind of getting back to your team a little bit, we've talked about this a lot this year, is that with as many starters as y'all lost from last year's team, as many kind of young guys stepping into some key situations, you kind of knew it was going to be a process. And then you have everything else on top of that. So you kind of knew it was going to take some time to get where they're going to eventually be. I guess what are some of maybe the biggest areas of growth you've seen from this bunch over the course of the season?
Well, again, it starts with our offensive, defensive line. I think they've really come together, really grown up, and our quarterback position. He's gotten better every week. He had a solid last game last year, and knew, it was unfortunate we didn't get to have spring, so he was kind of in a catch-up mode, and he's just gotten better and better every week. And just at every position, and a big surprise has been Noah Hatcher at safety. We moved him from running back to safety after our scrimmage versus Wiley, and he's just taken a hold of that position, and just everybody that was back, and even the guys that have stepped in, they've just grown weekly, if not daily, in their position and gotten better. And then that's been the message to the team. When we came out of that open week before we played Friendship, we were already kind of in a playoff mode, knowing that we'd have to go 1-0 every week in order to make the playoffs. And so that's given us a good mindset going into the playoffs, because as you know, I mean, it's Thunderdome every week. 2 teams enter, 1 team leaves.
Coach, now that you're in postseason play again, and congrats on that, what are some of the goals that you're talking to the kids about heading into postseason?
Well, just I talked to them last week. When you enter the playoffs, there's a finality to everything. Every practice, every rep, could be your last one. So don't take advantage of it. We've got to daily be getting better, working forward, because you win the games on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and that's been our message, for the last several weeks, is just go 1-0, make sure you're getting better, and that's what good teams do, is they're always better than they were the last time they played, and so that's what we're trying to achieve.
I know it's been one of your biggest goals since you took over that head coaching job, was to kind of restore this program to the, its previous level of success and kind of restore that tradition. I guess, how important was this year getting into the postseason? How important of a step was that toward that ultimate goal?
Well, it was huge because of us being as young as we are, and in some of our key positions. Making the postseason was a goal. Now we're there. Our plate's at the table, and so now it's just weekly. It's taking it step by step, and we want to use this year getting into the playoffs and make as far as run as we can, and then hopefully get back to where we're a consistent contender for district titles, number one, but also making the playoffs, because that's everybody's goal when you start district, is get yourself in position to make the playoffs and then try to win the district championship. And so that's the level that we want to get back to.
Okay, and this has just been such a unique year in so many different ways. I guess just how pleased are you that we've gotten to this point for the 5A and 6A programs that had to start a month late, that we've gotten to the playoffs with COVID and everything else that's happened, that we've been able to get to this point?
Well, it's been crazy because there's a lot of things that we do every day that we're on top of what we used to do. We have to clean our pads 3 times a day, and our helmets. We're constantly spraying things down. We're constantly having to mask up. And that's one of the most proud things I am of our team. Anytime they gather around me, they're always telling each other mask up just because of my situation, even though that's what everybody does, but they're paying huge attention. But our team has just taken every step, from the day that we got to come back for strength and conditioning, and the processes and the things that we had to install. At this point now, they've just become, that's just what we do on a day-to-day basis. And there's not been one moan or groan about anything that we've asked them to do. And, that was the whole goal when this whole thing started back in the summer, was just get to the fall to where we could play football. And then, now we're in it, and, there's been some bumps in the road. We've been pretty fortunate within our district to dodge a lot of the things where we hadn't had to cancel games or make up games or anything. And I think that's just a testament to the coaches within the district and the attention to detail that they've had in order for us to keep playing.
Coach, before we had you on tonight, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about the Gymnet Indians, and we know that some of those guys over there on that staff. You worked with Ryan Lewis and Dustin Todd. Can you tell me about the communication you've had with some of your old buddies and how happy you are to see them, advancing the way they are?
Oh, I've talked to them or texted them after every game on this run. I'm always, Roll Tribe, and I cut up with those guys, and I'm really happy for those guys, and I think they brought a touch of what we do here. They took it out there as far as the mentality and the culture that you have to be consistently a good football team, and I'm just tickled to death for those guys, and looking forward to them making a huge run. I'm really proud of them.
Coach, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be keeping an eye on you throughout the postseason, and just stay healthy, man. Keep fighting.
I will. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you.
And that was Abilene head football coach Mike Fullen. And I'll tell you what, who cannot root for that guy? Battling the way he's battling, you got to admire him.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I've been very impressed with is just the way that he's kind of tried to keep it, as business as usual as much as he can. And I know he mentioned in the conversation we just had, he's going through chemo right now. So I know there are times when he's probably not feeling very well, and he's still managing to do the best he can with that team. And it's been really impressive to watch. I think that you look at what he's done on the field. He's got them back in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. And then when you kind of combine with that everything he's dealt with off the field, like you said, you just have to root for a guy like that. And like I said, in the time I've gotten to know him, I've just really enjoyed, just kind of seeing the type of guy he is, seeing the type of coach he is, and seeing the type of program he runs. And I think he will get that Abilene High program back where he wants it to be. I think he's extremely committed to that. And I think this year was a big step toward that goal.
And with that, it's about time to wrap up this week's Capital Farm Credit Wednesday night podcast. But before we do that, we want to remind you that we have 3 different subscription packages here at BigCountryPreps.com. We've got a monthly for $5 a month. We've got a semi-annual 6-month subscription where we knock that price down to $4 a month. And then we've got an annual 12-month subscription where we knock that price down to $3 a month, $36 for a full 12 months of Big Country High School athletic coverage. Also, for you YouTubers, now most of our video viewers watch via our website, and that's fine. But for you YouTubers who like to watch these videos through that outlet, we ask that you please hit the subscribe button. That way our videos will be there ready and waiting for you as soon as we post them.
And we'd also like to remind you that if you ever see a photo you like in any one of our galleries, it is available for just $7. You can click on that small shopping cart icon to the bottom right, follow that prompt, and purchase as many of those as you would like. But we will be soon flipping the calendar over from football to basketball. And as we do throughout the school year, we will be taking lots and lots of photos. So check those out, and make sure you also check out our BCP photo archive, which is photos dating back all the way to 2018. If you've scrolled around the site, you've noticed we take a whole lot of photos, and that's something we are very proud of here at BigCountryPreps.com.
all big country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.